Welcome to the Busy Christian Mom podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Collier. By now, you may have heard the term love languages. It's from the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It was written in 1992, and it has been a highly successful book with a ton of spin-offs for different types of relationships like parent to kid, work relationships, and so forth. I'd like to make my own spin-off with this one, Jesus in the love languages. In the next 5 episodes, we'll walk through times in Jesus' ministry when he has shown acts of service, gift-giving, physical touch, quality time, and encouraging words. Today is episode 25. We are in the first of 5 episodes in our Jesus in the Love Languages mini-series, where we look deeper at the ministry of Jesus. Tune in and hear ways Jesus has shown words of affirmation, quality time, giving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Today's episode 25 is 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes. You may have grown up hearing a completely inaccurate phrase. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, how has that gone for you so far? I heard this phrase a ton growing up, and I'm pretty sure as a collective, those of us born in the late 1900s decided to just let that phrase die out with us instead of passing it along to our children. Someone wise once said, "The tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences." Let me say that again. The tongue can bring life or death. Oh, and that wise someone, it's God. That verse is in Proverbs 18:21, and it's one we could all stand to log away in our brains. Words of affirmation are effective and a wonderful way to show someone love. Who doesn't love a compliment or a deeper encouragement that spurs them on to do great things? As humans, we're wired to tune into what others say, and our brains log away that information for use later. Since the Bible is 100% true, then yes, words have the power to bring death, but they can also bring life. What better way to learn about this than from the mouth of Jesus? We'll look at 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes. These encouragements will challenge you to make a conscious choice to grow towards God. Who loves a legendary speech that transcends time? That would be everybody. In fact, legendary speeches are embedded into all great movies, books, stories, and histories. There is a skill for writing speeches, and people get paid top dollar to be great at it, but perhaps there's more to it. What if I told you the greatest speech that was ever written was by Jesus Christ? Pretty cool, huh? Today we're talking about Jesus and the love languages, and words of affirmation in particular. What better way to do that than talk about Jesus' famous speech, the Sermon on the Mount? This speech was given 2,000 years ago, and it's still relevant today. It's one of his most well-known sermons, and history's greatest speech ever given. Here's some quick facts about the Sermon on the Mount. You can read the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapters 5 through 7. 10 for 10, highly recommend. The sermon happened near the Sea of Galilee, and this is where you can read about the Golden Rule, the Lord's Prayer, righteous living, and our topic today, the Beatitudes. I have a couple of recommendations if you'd like to dive deeper or spend more time on this. You can do this in your study time over this week or whenever works best for you in your schedule. Read Matthew's chapter 1 through 7. Reread the Sermon on the Mount 3 times this week. Write down the Beatitudes, which is Matthew 5, 3 through 10, 3 times this week. Those are just 3 different ways you can kind of get into the word specifically around the Beatitudes. Beatitude means supremely blessed, and in this case of the Bible, God is blessing different qualities or circumstances found in people's lives. This example of the Sermon on the Mount helps us see how Jesus uses words of affirmation to inspire and give hope. It's a pep talk from Jesus. How cool. You ready to hear 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes? Let's do this. First, let's read the Beatitudes aloud. I'm going to read from the NLT, so your version may be a little bit different on the phrasing. This is Matthew 5, 3 through 10. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And that's Matthew 5, 3 through 10. Encouragement number 1, to the poor in spirit. Matthew 5:3 says, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. This poor means poor in spirit. When we realize that we're poor from an eternal standpoint, we realize that we can't afford an eternity without God. We need a Savior who can pay our fee and redeem our souls. Before Jesus died on the cross, This was what the sacrifices would atone for. Once Jesus came down to earth, he became the ultimate sacrifice. We were poor, and Jesus stepped in and paid the cost of what it takes to get to heaven. I love that this is the first of 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes. God blesses those who realize that they're a sinner needing saving, and we get to spend eternity in heaven with him. You are blessed, believer, because you recognize that you're a sinner needing saving, and you've chosen to follow Christ. Encouragement number 2, those who are mourning. Matthew 5:4 says, God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. This seems contradictory at first. I'm blessed because I'm mourning? Don't stop the sentence too early. Jesus is reminding us that although we mourn, we will be comforted by him. You may be right in the middle of a relationship hurt, a rough diagnosis, dealing with a death of a loved one, or some other type of pain. Maybe it's something that happened years ago, but the sting of sadness hasn't faded after all this time. Take heart, dear listener. Jesus promises to be your comfort. The second of 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes brings me such hope. We know that we'll face some disheartening trials with our time on earth. When we recognize that Jesus is here for us, we can rest in his arms of comfort. You are blessed during your mourning because God is there for you. He's there comforting you. Encouragement number 3, to the humble. Matthew 5:5 says, God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. The best way I can describe humility is not thinking less of yourself, rather it's thinking of yourself less. We've all seen some really great non-examples, and you can see that those people are not the most enjoyable to be around. When we walk in humility, God blesses us and promises that we'll inherit the whole earth. God made and owns the earth, so if he says we'll prosper, we will. Want to be more humble? Look at the life of Jesus and how he treated others. The third of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes challenges us to consistently check ourselves, and that is good for our soul. It's a way to help us safeguard how we live our lives with benefits of honoring Jesus and inheriting the earth. It's a win-win. God blesses you when you live a humble life. Encouragement number 4, those who hunger and thirst for justice. Matthew 5:6 says, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Let's address the facts. God blesses those who long for justice, yet it says nothing about us being the ones who carry out the justice. Multiple times in the Bible, God says he's the one who carries out the justice. He is all truth, and he wields the power to properly carry out the sentence. This also doesn't mean to walk around with an attitude of, they're going to get theirs. Whenever something doesn't go your way, God is the judge, jury, and justice. You keep on walking humbly. The fourth of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes lets us know that no matter what happens, God is going to satisfy that longing for justice that we have inside of us. Be encouraged that God sees what's going on and that he will bring all things to proper justice in his timing. God blesses you when you long for his justice. You will be satisfied. Encouragement number 5, to the merciful. Matthew 5:7 says, God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Plot twist! We just talked about God carrying out his justice, and the very next verse talks about showing mercy. It's almost like those two don't go together, when in fact, they do. Mercy and justice aren't opposites. Mercy is when we don't get what we deserve. Showing mercy is when compassion or forgiveness is given, when you have the power and authority that gives you the opportunity to bring the hammer of punishment or consequence. How are you doing with this one? I have a strong sense of judgment, so Jesus knew exactly what he was doing when the very next line is humbling in itself. The 5th of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes challenges us to be merciful to others. Remember, don't stop the sentence too early. We are blessed when we're merciful, and we will be shown mercy. I don't know about you, but I want the guy who's bringing the ultimate judgment to be merciful on me and all the things I've done, don't you? God blesses you when you show mercy to those around you, and he will show you mercy. Encouragement number 6, to the pure of heart. Matthew 5:8 says, God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. There's only one way to get a pure heart, and that's through the work of Jesus Christ. He's the guy who's saying this line, remember? If you have admitted that you're a sinner needing saving, poor in spirit, you believe that God sent his son to die on the cross and rose 3 days later in order to redeem us, and you've chosen to follow him, then you've been given a clean slate. Have regular check-ins with God and ask him if there are places in your heart that need refining, and he will help you do it. Pure heart, intentions that support the teaching of Jesus, and choosing to follow him are all ways that this can look. The 6th of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes challenges us to make sure our hearts are aligned with what God says. Those who are pure of heart are blessed, and bonus, get to see God. We can see God working in our hearts and lives, and we'll see him when we're called home. That's definitely a perk I want to be a part of. God blesses you when you have a pure heart, and he promises that you'll see him. Encouragement number 7, those who work for peace. Matthew 5:9 says, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called children of God. A lot of versions use the phrase peacemakers, which is those who are working to create peace. God is peace, and once that's sprinkled around like glitter at the preschool your kids go to, those glitter crafts go home in their backpacks and then get everywhere. Everywhere. That's how peace should look in our lives, actively getting everywhere. And like glitter, found in the most unexpected places, and it keeps turning up. When we are regularly creating peace for godly reasons, not out of conflict avoidance or power trips, we will be blessed and called children of God. Kids reflect their parents, and peace is a good indicator of who our Father is. The 7th of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes shows us the power of peace and what it can do for our lives and those around us. When your household, marriage, work environment, and so on, when those are peaceful, there is a noticeable difference. God blesses you in that department as well as calling you His. When you actively work to create peace around you, God blesses you as His child. And our last encouragement, number 8, to the persecuted. Matthew 5:10 says, God bless those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Man, this is a tough one. Last time I checked, persecution was zero fun. It can be difficult to stand up for your beliefs, and there are some right now in the world who are being put to death because of their love for Jesus. Here's a bit of encouragement straight from the mouth of Jesus. God blesses you, and the kingdom of heaven will be yours. You get to spend eternity in heaven, the greatest reward in existence. Being persecuted is never easy, but choosing to follow Jesus is worth everything. The 8th of our 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitude is to have the internal, eternal mindset. We may be persecuted in our life on earth, but that is nothing compared to forever with Jesus. Perspective is everything. Persecuted one, you are blessed, and you will get to be in heaven. Wow, I feel like we flew through those 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes. Jesus used words of affirmation and encouragement to inspire us to be these things. When we do, we'll be blessed. Let's recap them. Encouragement 1, to the poor in spirit, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Encouragement 2, to those who mourn, they will be comforted. Encouragement 3, to the humble, they will inherit the earth. Encouragement number 4, those who hunger and thirst for justice, they will be satisfied. Encouragement 5, the merciful, they'll be shown mercy. Encouragement 6, to those with pure hearts, they will see God. Encouragement 7, to the peacemakers, they are called children of God. And encouragement number 8, to the persecuted, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. I find that I need encouragement both in good and in bad times. For the good times to keep me on track, and in the bad times to give me hope. These 8 encouragements from Jesus in the Beatitudes are full of hope and promises. These words of affirmation straight from the mouth of Jesus are true, and I'm grateful that we get to experience some of these blessings on this side of heaven. When it comes to mourning, humility, justice, mercy, being pure of heart, peacemaking, and persecution, we all have room to grow. Are we going to get it right all the time? No, but we can do our best to embody these characteristics and point people back to Jesus. Be encouraged today, because no matter what you're going through, God loves and cares about you. And that wraps up episode 25. It's our first of 5 in Jesus in the Love Languages, where we look at his ministry and his time on earth. Come back next week, and we'll have our second love language that we get to talk about. Also, if you have not done this yet, go ahead and subscribe to the Busy Christian Mom podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, there should be a plus or a follow or an add sign. All you got to do is just click that, follow the podcast, and all the episodes come to you. You don't have to hunt around on the internet anymore. Just go straight to your device. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. See you next week.